So that part of it ties into an admin scale. And I did a talk 2 years ago on how to put together an admin scale. And that's very useful to sit down with somebody and do an admin scale with them if you're thinking about having a 2D with them, and see if you can have agreements on goals and purposes, and generally on their plans. So that really is the dating phase, or the hiring phase, when you think that you might want to move forward with somebody and really see if something can be worked out here and something can be done here. Then you're through that, you're through hiring, and you're into training. Now, training is also learning. I have to say that because people don't like the idea that they're being trained. Of course, every woman in here knows that she has to train the guy.
Careful, Trey.
The truth, sorry, Corky, everybody knows that most men are complete boneheads when it comes to creating relationships. They're not good at it, so they have to be coached along. Having the willingness to do that is one thing. It's an important part. But, training, having the basics of Scientology is a very, very good help. Understanding basics of ethics, understanding calm cycles, understanding completing cycles, understanding generally what hats are. If you're on the same page on those kind of things, you've got a good basis for putting together a relationship that can function well. But in any case, even if you know those things, you have to learn a lot about the person that you're with. And one of the joys of a good relationship is you're always finding out things about the person that you didn't know before, but really are delightful, are interesting and important. The hallmark of a bad relationship is you keep finding out things about the person you didn't know that really are pretty terrifying. So you can get rid of that side of things by really learning about the person. And besides, this is really before you get engaged. The end point of learning about somebody is you know enough about them to really know that you both want to move forward and to try to create a marriage together. And so the things you want to do is you want to organize zones of responsibility, what things are individual, what things are mutual. When you work out your admin scale, you work out policies on children, policies on finances, all those things that they get in the way when you don't work them out. One of the biggest pitfalls of this phase of any relationship is assuming. You get along really well with somebody and you sort of assume a lot of things, and they aren't really true. So you really have to find out. You have to be willing to learn about the other person, what they like, what they don't like, what works and what doesn't work with them, and vice versa. You have to be willing to reveal yourself enough and be open enough, which again goes back to your first dynamic. If you're open and you're there, people can see who you are. There's not that many surprises. You can really know, oh yeah, I understand this person. So there's a definition of marriage, and it's actually in the admin dictionary. It's not in the tech dictionary. But it's marriage would consist of putting together a thetan association without overts and withholds, postulated into existence, continued for the mutual perpetuation and protection of the members and the group. In other words, it's good for each individual and it's good for the unit. And a good marriage supports the individuals in it, and the individuals in it support the group. So the group survives and the individuals survive better. Ray made an important point, and I've always said to people that I've been counseling, that the most important criteria is, are you doing better together than you would separately? And if you are, it means you're not blocking each other. See, if you're in harmony and you're meshing, then you have more power working together than either one of you would have individually. But if you're at odds on some level, to some degree you're eclipsing each other. It's like people who are trying to dance and they keep stepping on each other's toes. Well, there's something to be worked out there.
Clarify something real quick?
Yes?
And correct me if I heard you wrong. Did you say creating space ends relationships? Did I hear that?
Distance.
Distance.
Yes, is what I meant.
Oh, yes, that I understand.
Yes. Yeah, because the person is unwilling to be in an unsafe space.
Yeah.
So if they're being attacked, they're going to withdraw and shrink.
Gotcha.
Now, when people get engaged, that becomes kind of an apprenticeship. You know, like in an org, you can do training on a course, and then you do an internship. And the training is mostly theoretical, and the internship is very intensely practical. When two people get together, the part of their lives that intersect with each other is pretty small. When you're dating somebody, you find that you can be together. To some degree you're doing together. You're not really having that much together. But once you decide to really integrate your lives, what you want to do is be able to coordinate not only being together in the same space, but functioning or doing together in the same space, and an agreement on what to have in that space or as part of your lives, or what not to have as part of your lives. So that's an important thing to work out. And it's sort of a, if you take the definition of a marriage, an engagement period, which is what this would be where you would work these things out. You could be living together or spending a lot of time together. But see, sometimes people go to the next gradient because they failed on the previous gradient. They go, well, this living together isn't working out, that's because we're not married. Well, that's the wrong why. You can always resolve the situation at the level that situation is. You don't have to go to the next level. That's a big mistake. You jump a gradient. And I've talked to a lot of couples that moved in together, and they just I always ask, well, when did you start to have problems? When we moved in together. Okay, well, I mean, obviously the answer is to go back to the dating phase, the learning phase, because you didn't know enough about each other to know that you could function together. Well, when I'm really in trouble is when I ask, when was the last time you guys were getting along? And they say, well, we never really got along. Okay. So, anyway, once you've gone through this, and it could be a short cycle or it could be a quick, long cycle, but you worked out all the bugs. I always liked what the Jewish religion, how they treated marriage. Because in the Jewish religion, two people create a marriage. It's a spiritual marriage. And once they say to themselves, yes, we have a marriage here, the group gets together and acknowledges that, and they add their agreement to it. The group doesn't create the marriage. The individuals create the marriage. So when you know that you have created a marriage, then you go to the utilization phase, which is posting. And now this person is posted on your org board as a permanent post. In an org, until a person is posted, they're in training. So you're in training until you're posted. When you get married, you're posted. Now you're married. But that's the sequence. Hiring, training, apprenticing, and utilization. And usually you can debug a relationship by finding out which one was not thoroughly done, which gradient was skipped along those lines. And if all of that is done properly, you get married and then you go into production. And then you start producing the things that you've agreed upon producing. You produce things that benefit you as an individual, and you produce things that benefit the group. And you also have mutually agreed upon ways of benefiting the environment around you, the other dynamics. It's important, a really good second dynamic is visible to the outside world. It's not a little cloistered, hidden thing, and that nobody ever sees your wife, and nobody ever, it's like, it's like a lot of the second dynamics here, they're couples, and everybody knows they're couples, they work together, they're seen as couples, and they're benefiting the third and fourth dynamic and the other dynamics. So this is very healthy on the second dynamic. But now we get to the heart of how to maintain a sane relationship. If you've gotten through all of this, you go into the next phase. The next phase is promotion, sales, and delivery. And that's what it's called in the Sandy scale. But how would this apply to second dynamic? Well, remember, you've got a cause-cause relationship. You're tracking through time like this. You're on the same page. But in any case, people will come up with new ideas. Things will change, and people will have things they want to start, things they want to change, things they want to stop. Not necessarily the marriage itself. But let's say the wife says, I've been reading and I think we ought to go vegetarian. Well, now this is a change. So how does this fit in here? So promotion, you'd have to promote that major change to your mate. You'd have to sell them on the idea, and then you can follow through. Now, this happens on big scales and little scales. You get the idea, let's go to the movie on Saturday night, let's go to this movie, it starts at 9 o'clock, and they go, yeah, that'd be a great idea, let's do that. And so you promoted it, you sold it, and then you actually do it. When you make promises that you don't keep, or you make plans that you don't follow, then you're not doing promotion, sales, and delivery. Maybe you're doing promotion and sales, but the delivery is out. So that's how you continue to track through time with the same person. That person knows what's happening with you. That person understands what's happening with you. You understand what's happening with that person. And you're in basic agreement. You don't let disagreements start to fester in terms of direction. Because what will happen is, if you, let's say you disagree, then the person starts to move unilaterally in a different direction, creating more distance there. And pretty soon you get somebody who isn't operating as a team, but they're operating as an individual. Now, what's very important in promotion and sales is keeping the comm cycle in. The general tech on the subject is that as long as the comm cycle is in, you can have a hot communication cycle, a heated communication cycle, but it's never going to really break the ARC until the comm cycle goes out. Now, when people get reactive, the first thing that goes out is their comm cycle. So this is kind of a challenge. So you have to have the discipline of the communication cycle. And most of the time when I'm doing 2D counseling on couples, they're arguing about this and that, doesn't really make too much difference. I just observe what the comm cycle is. And usually it's atrocious. I remember when I was doing a 2D handle on a woman and her son, and they sat down and they both started talking at each other at a rapid rate, and they just went on and on. Nobody ever paused. Nobody ever listened to the other person. They just kept talking at the other person until they ran out of breath. And I said, well, you guys really would do a lot better if you kept your comm cycle in. And the woman looked at me cheerfully and said, "Oh no, these are Italian TRs." But you can do this drill. You can say, "All right, now you shut up." And now, is there something that you've been trying to tell this other person that you don't feel that they ever got? And yeah, there always is something like that. So, okay, so say it, and you shut up. And so I give them little pads of paper. They can make notes, because they feel like the urge, they have to fight back, because they're in a fighting mode with the other person. So anyway, so they finish, and I say, okay, now you tell them back what they just told you, and with as much duplication as you can muster. And I said, okay, now is that what you meant? The person would say yes or no, and I say no. Okay, so say it again. Let's go back and forth until they get at least one thing that they both agree that they understood what the other person said. And that again tends to bring up the tone level of the relationship, and it tends to get people back in calm. I mean, you can't be in calm if you have no calm cycle. So putting in the calm cycle is the first challenge to getting people in calm.